I'm Miss kati-ellen, and today we are going to be talking about my January reads. So this month I think I definitely fell into a bit of a slump. I just really struggled. I know December and January for me are quite just weird months for me. I find come December I'm sort of winding down, I'm sort of coming to the end of my reading list and I don't really know what to read. And then January is trying to get back into it and I'm feeling a bit like, For me, I definitely feel like being out of work has definitely gotten me out of my normal routine, which I'm really struggling with because I would read an hour a day and it was fine. So I've really been making a conscious effort, definitely this last end of the month, to really sort of push myself and get myself back into reading more. So the first book I want to talk to you about is actually something I would never normally read. It's completely it's just not what I would ever read. Basically, a friend of my mum sent me a book. And the book I read was Arthur and Sherlock, Conan Doyle and the Creation of Holmes by Michael Sims. It came with a really cute little note from my mum's friend that said, "Katie, during our day out in London, your mum said that you were interested in the great Sherlock Holmes. Hope you enjoy the enclosed book. Do let me know what you think of it. Regards, Martin." He is so adorable. I've actually spoken to him a couple of times and I remember he told me that he went on a stag do that was Sherlock Holmes themed. So basically this book covers sort of Arthur's early life, the books he read and the people he met and being at school. I have to say, I started reading this end of December. I was definitely still at work, I think, and I'm not gonna lie, I really struggled with it. I'm not gonna lie, this book was really hard for me to read. The print is just tiny. But not only that, but I think because it's not just what I would normally read, I guess I'm waiting for action or for something to happen, and I guess because it's a biography as well, but obviously not written by the person. So I was just trying to get into the rhythm of it. It would bounce around from times and it's one of these things, it is actually really interesting. I just found it really hard to get into and to read, and it's things like the detective stories that he read as a child and what were about, but they still didn't have, you know, that really genre grabbing. It wasn't quite, you know, detective stories weren't like the big thing. It's like, I never knew Edgar Allan Poe wrote one, so I learned something. And so yeah, it's things like that. But like there's a section of this book that just goes on and on about Edgar Allan Poe and I'm just sat there like, but it is actually interesting, you know, his history and having to set up his practice, you know, everything he goes through trying to get his books published, how books were actually published back then. A lot of his books were sent to publishers and that they were produced in like an annual magazine. It was quite interesting to sort of read how it was done back then, because I guess it's so different now. So it actually is an interesting book, and if you do like Sherlock Holmes, I mean, I've only ever watched the series and I've actually read the book, so I am debating whether or not to read one of his stories. I would say give this a read if you really love it and you really want to know more. It is really interesting, but like I said, it's just so polar opposite of what I normally read. It was a bit of a struggle to get in, but I am really grateful to him that he sent this to me because it's such a lovely little thought. So the second book I read was actually a Christmas present for my bestest buddy, and it's a book that has been on my reading shelf list thing forever. I'm not even kidding you. It is The Chaos of the Stars by Kristen White. I love the cover of this book. So basically, the reason why I was drawn to this was the Egyptian theme in this. This is like the single reason. I technically haven't finished yet, but by the time that this video goes up, I will have finished it and I will make a review of my thoughts of this book. In general, it is a good book. I'm glad I picked this one actually to get me back into reading because it's not actually that long and it's actually quite a nice easy reading because I love Egyptians and I love that sort of, not mythos, but that sort of thing. It was a really good pick for me. I like how the book was like set up, how it was written. I think it was really clever because I guess there's a lot of information and history about the Egyptians and their gods that you would want to cram into a book like this, but it would become one of those things where I think maybe the story would suffer because you want to get all that just cool element in. There is also a kind of a Greek mythology. I never know if to say mythology or mythos, I don't know. There is, yeah, a kind of like a Greek element in it, and I would love for her to do a book on that. I just think it's really interesting. It would be quite cool as well because a lot of the gods are very similar, I guess, in what they represent. So I think it'd be quite cool to do that. But I have to say, this is actually a really good read. I'm kind of sad there is only one, but I have to say, as far as story goes, not much really happens. I'm near the end now and things are starting to happen, but there's definitely this whole idea of a looming threat, this oncoming darkness, like something is coming. It's definitely a slow burner in terms of actual plot. Most of the plot really just centers around Isadora leaving, you know, this family that she's known, family of immortal gods, and her relationship dynamic with her family, because she herself is not immortal. She has this conception of like what her family is and what they're about, and she just feels very, she isolates herself from her family, so she feels very kind of them and me, and I'm not like them, they don't love me as much, I'm not part of that. So she feels very betrayed when she goes to see her brother in America and he's starting up his own family. I think she kind of feels like, why would you want to do that? Why would you not tell me? It's very teenagey, angsty, whiny, woe is me, and it gets quite tiring having to listen to her, but seeing how other people influence her and how she's trying to open herself up, even though she's obviously terrified to do it, it's quite cool. I'm trying not to go too much into review of this book because I can't actually wait to review this because it is really good. And I think where it maybe lacks in real kind of proper plot and kind of it makes up in how it's structurally been done and how well it's been crafted as a whole. But in general, it is a really cool book and I definitely would recommend it. I think I am going to read her other book, Illusions of Fate. That seems quite interesting and it's quite nice actually for me to have just standalone books. So those are the two books I've read in January. I'm really going to definitely try and force myself to get more into the rhythm of reading. I'm reading more at night now, whereas before when I was working I wasn't. I'm finding that I'm not actually able to sleep anymore at the time when I used to. So I've been reading for a couple of hours before bed, and when my mum gets home from work I sort of read for a few hours before food. So I'm definitely pushing myself to try more and just get back into the rhythm because I love reading. I really love it. So I'm stuck on my February reads and I would love for you guys to try and help me out. I'm really stuck and I can't pick between which book I want to read. So on one hand we have The Sin Eater's Daughter by Melinda Salisbury. I've been dying to read this series actually. Now that I've got all three I really want to read them, but then the other part of me is like, maybe I should go for a classic. Said classic in question is The Wizard of Oz. I don't know which to pick and I need help. I kind of had thought that because there are is it 4 or 5? I don't know, 4 or 5 books in the series and 3 books per binder, I thought that maybe I would read one and then read something else because that's going to be about 15 stories, which is might be quite like sort of heavy hitting. So I think maybe I might read this first. I might alternate between them maybe. I don't really know. I'm very much stuck on that because I want to read both. But I think I'm leaning more towards this. So maybe I'll read the first one of this, then read this one. Although there are a short story that goes with this as well, so I might read that as well. I never know whether to read short stories sometimes. I really and ah about it. Do you read short stories? Like, where do you stand on the whole novella things? And if they're a book, do you buy the book or do you ebook it? Because I have a tendency just to get it on my Kindle unless there's a lot. In the Lunar Chronicles case, there was about 5 short stories, so I got the book of that and then I got Fairest because that is actually quite a substantial book. And I know there's a new one coming out by Sarah J Maas and I've already seen the cover for it and I'm like, I think I'm going to buy it just because. I'm really rambling here, I'm terribly sorry. So yes, please vote on either of these 2 books. Which do you think I should read? This one or this one? I would very much be happy and pleased and grateful for your answers. Thank you so much for joining me once again. As always, I would love to hear from you in the comment section. So what your thoughts on what I've read, have you read either of these books? And definitely please your votes on that book because I need to know. I'm rubbish at making decisions. So half the time I go, Mum, just pick a book for me because I can't do it and I get like way too caught up. For everything book related, check out my links below. You've got Goodreads, BookLikes, and of course Instagram. It would be wonderful if you could give this video a like and subscribe. And also you can check out my other videos as well. And until next time.